I'm Andrew. I am the Law Librarian Manager here at the Fort Bend County Law Library. And today we're going to be talking about probate. This is actually my second course on probate. My first class dealt more specifically with probate resources, how to use them, where to find them. So I will be offering that class again. I will delve into a little bit of that material in this class, but really this class is more focused on, you've got a probate issue, what are some information and topics that you need to know about when you do get to court. Some of these are going to be Fort Bend County policies, so these are things that you'll need to follow while you're here at court. And then some of the other things are just general probate issues and topics that you'll need to know. Go ahead and please hold all your questions to the end. Let me get through this presentation and then I'll answer what questions I can. Please be aware that I'm not an attorney. So if you have any specific questions, you'll have to reference those to an attorney, but there are some general questions I'll be able to answer at the end. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about general information about probate court and some specifics here in Fort Bend. We're going to talk about where to find paperwork, where to find those forms that you're going to need to file, some of which, are going to be easy to find. Other paperwork is not going to be quite as easy. So we'll delve into that a little bit. We're going to talk about where to file paperwork. Where do you go? Either you're going to come to the courthouse and file that paperwork, or you're going to go online and go to e-filing. We're going to talk about that. And how can we help you here in the Fort Bend County Law Library? So as you've probably heard me talk about before, there's certain things we can do to help you along. But a lot of that is going to be you doing the work. Because we can't give you legal advice. We can't advise you on how to proceed. But as far as resources and information, where to find paperwork, where to file it, that sort of thing, any procedural type things, we can help you with that. And then finally, when you get to a point, you've looked through the information, we've helped you as much as we can. And you need to actually sit down and talk with an attorney, then I'll tell you where you can go to get an attorney. So probate court, what you need to know. So probate court in Texas is generally going to be in county court at law. Now, some of the smaller counties here in Texas may only have one constitutional county court, which is typically the county judge. So in that case, those procedures may be in there. But for Fort Bend County, they're going to be in the county courts at law. And we actually have 6 of those, 6 probate courts here in Fort Bend County. And that's county court at law number 1 through number 6. They all deal with probate issues. Now they deal with them in varying levels. So, some of them deal a little bit more with criminal. Some of them deal a little bit more with the civil side of things. So depending on which court you get assigned to, but for all intents and purposes, they all deal with probate issues. You can represent yourself pro se in probate court. However, there are going to be some restrictions, and we're going to kind of go over that here in just a little bit. Now, you can get the policy regarding pro se applicants here in Fort Bend County. You can find that on their website. There's the website there below. There's going to be a lot of other additional information on that particular page. There's going to be some forms, some general information, the rules of court for each of the county courts at law. So you can find all that there. You don't necessarily need to write down this website address. I'll be happy to send you this presentation afterwards so you have the website address. You can also just Google it, type in Fort Bend County, go to departments, find county courts at law, and their probate forms and information. Now, back to the pro se applicant policy. So according to Fort Bend County policy, a pro se may not represent others. You can only represent yourself. So under Texas law, only a licensed attorney may represent the interests of a third party or individuals or entities, including guardianship wards and probate estates. So what does that mean? That means if you're going into a probate issue and you are going to represent yourself, you cannot also represent yourself in the capacity of an executor. So in that situation, you're going to need an attorney. That's how the probate courts here in Fort Bend interpret that statute. So just be aware that if you're going to go into probate court, especially where you have a will and there may needs to be an executor in that situation, you can't represent yourself in both capacities. They're going to pretty much require you to have an attorney in some sort of capacity to represent you. Okay. So all the Fort Bend County policy information can be found on the Fort Bend County website, which is www.fortbendcountytx.gov. And then just go to County Courts of Law. And, how are assets given to heirs, right? So that's what probate is here to do. So even if there is a will that says, you know what, this car goes to this person, this house goes to this person, my money goes to my children, probate court is here to make that happen. And so probate is the legal process used to distribute a person's property, which is called an estate, after a person dies. Okay. So how many different ways are there to transfer property? Well, there's a few different ways. One, if you don't have a will, and that's what we call intestate, the property will pass to a person's heirs, including, according to Texas law, who gets what depends on how closely they're related to each other, how closely they're related to the descendant, the characterization of the property in the estate, that is whether the property is personal or real estate, whether it's community, which would be marital property, or separate property. So just be aware of that. So that's what probate court is really meant to do, especially if you don't have a will. It's going to divide all that property with the heirs. So even if you have a will, the property will be given to the heirs according to the descendant's will. Now, there are going to be some exceptions of that, depending on what type of will it is. Is it a copy of it, a will, a holographic will, things like that. So there's going to be some exceptions to that, but for the most part, if there's a will, it's going to go to the descendants exactly how the descendant wanted it to be. So another way, small estate affidavit. Now, this requires court approval. So if your estate does not exceed $75,000, and now that excludes a homestead or exempt property, you can file a small estate affidavit. Now that has to go to court. A judge has to sign off on it. That's going to be something that you'll need to go to court for. The heir no longer has to reside in the home to receive that property with the small estate affidavit. But you do have to have two witnesses. It used to be, Texas law used to say that the heir had to reside in the home to file a small estate affidavit. So that could be, your spouse. But that no longer has to be the case, especially if, let's say, the descendant is single, or maybe both died at the same time, and it goes to a child, that heir may not live there, in that particular house to receive it. Affidavit of heirship. This does not require court approval. It can be used to transfer title to real estate or motor vehicles. But you do have to have two witnesses, just like the small estate affidavit. Okay. Non-probate assets, what are those? That can include anything like insurance proceeds, retirement funds, bank accounts payable on death, similar assets to a beneficiary in a contract, joint bank accounts, jointly held real estate, things like that. Those are things that don't need to go to probate court. Debts. What are debts? Okay, so debts are paid from the estate you know, to the extent that there are assets to cover them. So that, you know, if you pass away and you have all these debts on your account, typically, you know, that's going to be paid out of your assets. So if your debt exceeds the assets, you are now fiduciary to those creditors and you cannot represent yourself. So this also applies to the Fort Bend County policy. So if you are a fiduciary to those creditors, and you are, you know, one of the parties there, you cannot represent yourself in that capacity. So again, having an attorney is going to be beneficial in this kind of proceeding. So real estate passing to heirs outside of probate. So this can include transfer on death deed or a life estate deed. However, please note, and I just recently was told this from an attorney, the transfer on death deed has been removed from the estates code. Now, it's still being recognized. So for instance, your transfer on death deed was signed a couple of years ago. They're still recognizing that in court. The judges are still recognizing it as a way to transfer property, but it's no longer in the estates code. So the attorneys are not really sure how that's going to, you know, be interpreted from here on out. So just be aware of that. That may not be a route you want to go from here on out. So just be aware of that. You know, that may be that's going to be a question for an attorney on how to proceed in that situation. Finally, there's immuniment of title, which is just generally an expression reference to deeds and other written evidence of property title. So if you have a quitclaim deed, you have, you know, a title with your name on it with the property, you know, those would be considered just immuniment of title. Okay. So finding paperwork. Okay, so you've entered probate court. You're ready to start filing. Maybe you've got a will, maybe you don't got a will. You've got a transfer on death deed. You've got a small estate affidavit ready to be filed, what have you. Here's where you're going to go find the paperwork. So texaslawhelp.org has a lot of forms, including the small estate affidavit. Remember, $75,000. You know, for the estate, but that doesn't include your homestead or any exempt property. They also have a transfer on death deed in there, but it's not going to have anything like affidavit of heirship or an application for probate. You're going to have to find those in different places. Now, TexasLawHelp.org is going to have plenty of information about all those types of documents. It's going to have information on when you might want to file it, what type of document you might need. But it's not going to have the fill in the blank form. So for additional forms, there's a few places you can go. If you have a Fort Bend County Library card, you can go to the Lexus Digital Library, which is through our website. You can also go to Gale Legal Forms, which is also on our website. All you need is the barcode number on the back of your card. So if you've got, you know, one of the red ones, you've got one of the blue ones, and actually, if you've had a library card for a long time and they have one that's like all multicolored, those are still usable. You just need the barcode back there. Now, for Lexus Digital Library, you will also need your PIN number. So that's your password. You'll also need that. But as long as you have both of those, you can get access to both of those websites. So that's going to have pretty much all the forms you're going to need, as close to fill in the blank style as you can get. Some of those you're going to have to edit from home. They'll download in Word format, and then you can edit the forms to make them work for you. So some of those forms, especially like small estate affidavit, you know, you find at Texas Law Help are going to be pretty much fill in the blank. Like I said, the other ones you will need to either download them in Word or convert them. If you need to convert them, let's say they download in PDF, just call us. We'll be able to do that for you. By the way, we are open now, so if you want to come to the law library between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., we'll be able to help you in person. Of course, you need to wear your mask and follow all social distancing guidelines, but we are open if you want to come up here and get some information or forms. So where to file paperwork? There's going to be a couple different ways you can do this. You know, as I said earlier, you know, all probate courts are in county courts at law. So that means you can file those paperwork in the county clerk's office. Don't go to the one over in the Travis building. They do a lot of transactional paperwork there. To file it, you'll need to come here to the courthouse, which is, here at 1422 Eugene Hyman Circle. You can look it up online. You can Google it. But the county clerk's office is in this building. It's going to be on the first floor in the annex, which is on the left-hand side of the building. So you can file it yourself in person, but just be aware that if you file it yourself, you will need an attorney of record for some of the, some of your capacities. So as the Fort Bend County policy says, the clerk will accept those documents, but the court will take no action unless there's an attorney of record in the case. So that basically means you're going to have to hire an attorney for portions of the proceedings, not all of it, but for a portion of it. And you can file paperwork on your own. That's not an issue. But just be aware, unless you have an attorney of record in the case, they will just not proceed on it until you do. The other way to file, of course, you can go to eFile, which is right there, efile.txcourts.gov. You will need to create an account for that website to be able to file those documents. They must be in PDF format. So just be aware of that. You can't file it as a Word document. You'll have to convert it back to PDF. But once you do that, you can go online to the eFile. If you don't feel comfortable coming in person, you can do it that way. Again, you can also have your attorney do it for you. They can go online and eFile it. So just be aware of that. You can find eFile instructions on how to do that, both on eFile txcourts.gov, or you can go on to the county clerk's website, Fort Bend County Clerk, and find some instructions on how to do that. So what can we do at the law library? Well, we can do a lot of things, but there's also a lot of things we can't do. So if you want to come in and find some more in-depth information on what I presented here today, find some forms and paperwork, general information, we can do all that for you, and we can find all that. Especially if you come in with something specific that you need, we're happy to do that. Locate statutes and case law. So if you're coming in and you want to look up, a particular statute in the estates code, you want to look up a particular case that deals with the same issues that you're dealing with, how did they handle that before? We can totally do that for you. Direct you to sources of law, including statutes and cases, like I said. Direct you to books, databases, internet resources. We'll show you how to access those databases. We'll show you how to use them. We'll show you how to use the books, get yourself orientated. We can recommend specific sources to do some research. We can do all that. What we can't do, of course, is give you legal advice. We can't advise you on how to proceed. We can't interpret anything for you. Can't choose specific forms unless, of course, you ask for them. State opinions, we can't do any of that. But what we can do is show you where to get that legal advice. Now, I can't recommend specific attorneys, but what I can do, like for instance, you can go to the Fort Bend County Bar website. They've got a list of attorneys in a directory. You can narrow it to probate court, and you can see our probate law, and you can see all the probate attorneys that are in Fort Bend County. They have their contact information there, and go from there. So what does the law library have in terms of probate forms? This is a little bit from my first class that I'm going to go over here again. But we have some additional print resources, including the probate system manual. We have a digital copy. O'Connor's Texas estate planning forms, probate law handbook, all on Westlaw. I also have them in print. So if you prefer them in print, you can come in. James Publishing, Texas estate planning, Texas probate forms and procedures. You can get those online with the Lexis Digital Library, or you can come in and use Lexis Advance. Again, these books are written more for attorneys, but the forms are available in Word format for editing. And really, once you understand the format, you can kind of start filling these out pretty easy. And after you've kind of done one form and get it filled out, you're kind of off and running it gets pretty easy from there in terms of formatting. So legal assistance resources, this is kind of where you get to a point where I need more help. Lone Star Legal Aid and the Earl Carl Institute are both located here in Fort Bend County, or at least serve Fort Bend County. We can give you contact information for both of those. In some cases, they will represent you if you can't afford an attorney. So just be aware of that. They will also just answer simple legal questions if you call their legal line. So just be aware of that. Texas Legal Services Center is a legal line you can call and get some legal advice. And then if you decide you really need an attorney, and like I said, here in probate court, especially here in Fort Bend County, and I would assume a lot of counties across Texas, for some of the proceedings in probate court, you're going to need an attorney. So the Houston Lawyer Referral Service would be able to find you one that kind of fits your budget. So you can call them. Again, like I said, go to the Fort Bend County Bar website. They have a directory there that you can call people. And one of the things I always tell people, you at the very least, you might want to get a consultation, so that you can see what does the attorney offer, what are they going to do for you, how much do they charge. You can get some quick legal advice, go from there. So getting a consultation is the first step, to get to know an attorney, see what services they provide, things like that. So always do that, especially in probate court, because like I said, there's proceedings that they will need you to have an attorney. So it's always good to kind of, go out there, at least have a consultation, see what that attorney will do for you. So any questions? That was kind of a quick and dirty presentation just on probate and the probate courts here. This is the first time I've done this presentation, so we'll get better as we go along. So let me go ahead and unmute you. And now you can ask questions.
Yeah, you offered a website called texaslawhelp.org for certain forms. Is there a website also for criminal forms?
Criminal forms, those are going to be tricky. We have them here at the law library. You can also go on to Lexis Digital Library. So again, if you have a library card, you can go on there. There's going to be criminal forms there, especially in a particular source called Texas Criminal Practice and Procedure. Sorry, I'm trying to get the name of that book down. Sometimes they throw different words in there. But anyway, yes, Texas Criminal Practice and Procedure. You're going to find forms in there on Lexis Digital Library. You're going to find a few on Gale Legal Forms Library, again, library card. But they're going to be pretty skimpy on that particular website. Now, to find some criminal forms online, there's going to be a few procedural things on the Fort Bend County website, like service of process and a few other things. But as far as real criminal forms that you're going to need to file in court, you're probably going to want to come to the law library at the very least. Check out Lexis Digital Library for those.
Okay, and once you apply for the library card, how long does it take for a response?
Oh, you'll get your barcode by the end of the day. So if you go onto our website, which is www.fortbend.lib.tx.us, you can Google it too, just Fort Bend County Libraries. Go to the How Do I section and get a library card. There's going to be an online application. Fill that out. We'll have a barcode to you by the end of the day, including your PIN. So it's a very quick turnaround.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you soon.